Today on the real estate edition of That Business Show 2.0, we'll be talking about my specialty, which is foreclosures. We've covered the topic a variety of times on the program, and today it's going to be all about foreclosures. First order of business, I want to take you over to the new website, TampaBayREO.com. We've made some new updates on the site, so I want to make people well aware of this resource available to you as a listener and also just as a general member of the public. So TampaBayREO.com is the site dedicated to the real estate division of my business. So on the homepage there, you'll see up there at the top of the page there, you'll see a quick search box where you can search for properties there, and also we put our featured podcast there. We change that out every couple of weeks there. That was the recent The Truth on the Guaranteed Sale program, where we talk about some of the agents that market to that program and what it really entails. So a lot of good information inside of that podcast, but I won't rehash that at this time. Also, if you scroll down, we've got the inventory reports up here on the site now. If you're a listener or a viewer of the show on a regular basis, you'll know that we do statistical reports of the Tampa Bay market each and every month on the program. We cover Hillsborough, Pinellas, Pasco, and Polk on the program. We put together nice statistical reports that look like that right there and go through the different market statistics for the single family homes, and also touch on the condo market as well, which is a separate tab over there. So these are available for the four primary counties that I cover, and they'll be updated each and every month on the program, also with a show to go along with it that is going to support the documents they're provided. Down here you can see some of the featured properties, commercial foreclosures, and then this is just the Tampa Bay market. So if you're listening to me outside of the Tampa Bay market, this again just covers Tampa Bay, but you can use the website to search for properties across the state of Florida though. So just keep that in mind by using the search box up here. And if you go up here to the top under real estate search over here, you can see the residential search features, and you can search again right in that box right there. Just go over to property search, map search, or address search, and we also have it broken down by commercial, rental properties, and lots and land. So a convenient way to search for real estate here in the Tampa Bay region at TampaBayREO.com. But again, this site is designed primarily as a resource for foreclosures, which is going to be the topic of today's program. I myself sold over 2,000 some foreclosed properties in the Tampa Bay region, and again, that's obviously my specialty, but I can help you buying or selling real estate anywhere in Tampa Bay, any type of property from residential to commercial. So consider me your resource in real estate, a lot of market experience and a lot of know-how to get the job done. Also, I just want to take you back over here and show you some of the other resources here. All of the videos that I've ever done on this program are located right here across the menu bar there at the far end of right. If your browser doesn't show the tab that says real estate videos, you'll see the three lines that up here at the top of the menu bar, and you can see the different videos that we have done on the program. For instance, here's one, contract and forms for HUD homes, how to buy HUD homes, making effective offers in real estate. And if you click on any of those tabs right there, it'll take you over, and we've got actually the video embedded inside the site with a short description of what it is. It's also a mobile friendly site. This is fully 100% responsive to mobile applications or mobile devices, and so you can watch these videos on the convenience of your cell phone as well. Also at the top of the page under a podcast is the audio player. This is will use less bandwidth, obviously, and you can just listen to all the past shows right here by simply clicking on the play button. And as you can see, our last show, which we just posted, was the statistical report, and we have a show on FAQs coming up, which is actually airing today live, and then this program will air the following week. So we do a new real estate edition each Thursday morning at 9 a.m. on thatbusinessnetwork.com. New information each and every week, and this is in addition to the regular That Business Show 2.0 that we do each and every weekday morning, where we talk with different business owners and entrepreneurs. We're always looking for guests for the program too. So if you'd like to come on to this program or the regular edition of That Business Show 2.0, simply see the request form over at tbsinterview.com. Again, tbsinterview.com. That covers both of the programs. You can also find the program available all across social media and also on iTunes. And the Real Estate Edition is a separate podcast separated out from That Business Show 2.0, but we also put the Real Estate Edition shows into the regular feed for the entire program also. Let's come back over here and take another look at the homepage there. Just go back over some of the resources available on this site because it's got a lot of good information for the Tampa Bay market that's easily summarized and put together so you can easily search for real estate listings. If you scroll down to the middle of the page or so, you can see the different counties here, and if you click on any of the counties right there, this is going to pull up the available inventory of foreclosed properties in that particular county right there. So that's a search that is predefined, pre-set up for you. If you want to get specific, you can use the search box on the home page or underneath the real estate search function over there. But I've separated this out here on the home page that you can search for the different counties that I cover. My primary counties, again, are Hillsborough, Pinellas, Pasco, and Polk, but we also do get up into Hernando, Sarasota, Manatee, and Sumter at times. And so we've pulled all of the foreclosed properties in those areas that you can take a look at. Also, commercial REO properties, as these are right now just set to be a slideshow function. You can click on any of the images as they pop up, and then it'll take you over to more information on the property virtual tour. You can schedule a showing, and you'll see more features on the property there on the home page of, again, TampaBayREO.com. If you're looking for more information on this, you simply fill out the contact form down here at the bottom of the page, and then send me a message, and you can see over there, it'll go directly to me. Also, you can contact me simply through the contact button up there at the top of the homepage. And on the page there, we also have a place right there. If you'd like to be added to our investor list or our buyer list or realtor list, whatever it is that you are interested in, just click on this graphic there on the homepage. It's the same link as the contact form. Put in your information. Send me a quick message about what it is that you're looking to keep up to date with, whether or not you're a real estate investor, whether or not you're a real estate agent, if you're a first-time buyer looking for a home. That way I can put you on the proper email distribution list. I don't want to put, real estate agents on on a list for a first-time buyer, or for first-time buyer on a list for, stuff that's geared towards real estate agents. And so I try to separate that out to make the emails appropriate to the for the message that I am providing. And so again, on the contact page there, simply put in what you are and what's the reason you'd like to be added to the email list for. And again, primarily it'd be real estate investors, it would be real estate agents, and first-time buyers that are looking just to keep up on what's coming on and off the market. And so those are the general groups right there that I cater to right there with regular emails. Coming over here back to the homepage, we also have a tutorial video down there at the bottom of the page that is updated from time to time, but this is just a shorter video on how to navigate the different features on the site. As of right now, the homepage has been updated since the making of this initial video right there. Also over here, featured properties. These are some of my listings here that are currently available. So if you have time to peruse the featured listings, and if you see something there of the liking, those are my personal listings right there. And some of them are under contract as well. And as you can see, some of them are a little bit rough, but that's typical for foreclosed properties, and we're going to cover that on today's program and kind of help you navigate this market, which is something that attracts a lot of real estate buyers. They want to know the secrets of foreclosed properties. But I'm always quick to point out that just because the property is a foreclosed property, it doesn't mean it's necessarily a great deal. And so keep that in mind when you are searching for real estate listings. Foreclosed properties are oftentimes put onto the marketplace at a price that is in line with current available inventory on the market. Yes, a lot of times the prices are below what the other properties are listed at, but that's because they are in an inferior condition. And as you can see, a couple of the properties that are just flashing up on the homepage there of Tampa Bay REO. You saw the one property that was completely boarded up. The property also has, structural issues. I mean, it's a huge house, but it was built in like 1902, I believe it was. And so these properties are, they're just not in line with community standards. And that's due in large part because if a person stops paying the mortgage on the home, they're going to stop paying for the maintenance on the property. And so there becomes a lot of deferred maintenance that builds up on the property, and they make the property, inferior to other homes that are on the market. So if you're coming to a real estate agent and you tell them you're looking for foreclosed properties, you really need to rethink that statement and look for all properties on the market that fit what you're looking for, and it not necessarily is going to be a foreclosed property. That argument, that discussion is oftentimes confused with the people that see people buying properties off market from banks or investment groups in pools of properties, and those are foreclosed properties as well, but they are prior to hitting the multiple listing service. And so there's a distinction between the properties once they go into the multiple listing service through real estate agents and properties that are bought off market. And those types of situations usually are purchased by investment groups that are buying large pools of properties. They are, certified investors, and they purchase them in large blocks. And so they're not going to be able to purchase 1 and 2, 3 properties here and there from banks at that point. Also, buying from the auction is another place where that oftentimes is confused with buying foreclosed properties. So once the properties hit the multiple listing service, your real estate agent is not your best bet for finding great deals in foreclosures. That is off-market stuff, and I myself do not specialize in that. I can connect you with people that do if you are a certified investor. Nonetheless, I and other real estate agents and REO agents can help connect you with all properties on the market that fit your need, but they may not necessarily be foreclosed properties. So keep that in mind when you're searching for properties that are available on the multiple listing service, that all properties are a potential good deal. It's just a matter of doing your due diligence, finding the properties that fit your market. We'll talk more about finding properties and foreclosed properties and how this whole market works when we come back from the break. So again, keep your eye on TampaBayREO.com. It is Tampa Bay's #1 foreclosure resource. And you're currently listening to the Real Estate Edition of That Business Show 2.0 with your host, Jamie Maloney, where real estate becomes show business.
Hi, welcome to Yeagers. We just want to take a minute and show you what we're all about. At Yeagers, our primary business is hardwood flooring, although we are remodelers for kitchen, bath, and general construction. We operate a fleet of shop-at-home vans that have all the flooring type products, hardwood flooring, laminate flooring, tiles, stone, what have you. So we're able to come out first with products in our vehicles and take a look at the setting, how the colors will work, and then to be able to come up with some options and ideas for you. If that's not good enough, we have a large distribution center that we inventory product and have a nice display area.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Edition of That Business Show 2.0 with your host, Jamie Maloney, where real estate becomes show business, with new episodes each Thursday morning at 9 a.m. on thatbusinessnetwork.com and all available on demand on YouTube, as well as TampaBayREO.com, and also on iTunes. So please subscribe, please spread the word. We put a lot of effort into the program, both the regular edition and the real estate edition, the websites, and also just the content in general. And so please help support the program. We do work hard to get this information out to the public so you can be an informed consumer. So again, my specialty has been selling foreclosed properties for the past 10 years. I've been on the Wall Street Journal list 3 or 4 different years as a top 100 broker, and that's across the country. And I've made Coldwell Banker's national top 10 list on 3 different occasions, coming in at number 4 just a couple of years ago at the peak of what was my REO business at the time. REOs, foreclosures today, are beginning to diminish quite substantially, though. So a lot of REO agents are transitioning into other areas of real estate. I myself am beginning to work more and more with commercial real estate, which is actually how I went into real estate to begin with, is to do commercial real estate, and was drawn into the foreclosure business. But nonetheless, foreclosures are in our market just 1 to 2% of the available inventory. Short sales just 3-4% of the available inventory, and this is down from 20% peaks, 20 even 30% peaks around 2009 and in 2010, and the distressed inventory peaking around 2012. We had a lull back there between 2010 and 11 due to the robo-signing mess that hit the foreclosure industry. And there's a lot of good information out there about what happened with that particular incident, and a lot of people that were able to stay in their homes for much longer due to the intricacies of the legal issues around the signing of the documents and the verifications and all that different stuff. But I'm not going to go into that on this program. But I want to talk first today about making offers on foreclosed properties. And they're a little bit different than traditional properties and how you should approach them. So the first key to remember when you're offering on a foreclosed property is that you're dealing with a non-emotional seller. Traditional real estate, you're in an emotional situation more so from the seller side than the buy side, and that's where you get the increased purchase price or the elevated value. And I always call that, many of us do, the emotional value that the seller has added to the acquisition cost of their property. The corporate people, the banks, that's not really the case. They take a property back via foreclosure, and they're not in the business to be property managers, and they're not in the business to be real estate investors, to fix the property up and rent it out, or fix the property up and then try to flip the property. I mean, some of them will fix them up and try to get more money due to the rehab, but generally speaking, banks are not in a position to be real estate investors. They don't have the contacts locally to get the best pricing, to get the best information, and so 90% of the bank properties that hit the multiple listing service are strictly purchased, or I should say sold as is after being acquired through the real estate auction. And so when you make an offer on the foreclosed property, keep in mind you're dealing with a non-emotional seller. You're dealing with an employee. You're dealing with somebody who goes to work at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, goes home at 5 o'clock. And so they're really not concerned with, if the offer comes in late in the day, I got to get to the offer. They're concerned with just doing their job. And if their job at that time, it revolves around, getting the offers answered, that's what they will do. If their job at that time is, focused on getting new properties onto the marketplace, then that's what they're going to do. And so that's why you need to allow for a few days for an offer to be reviewed on a bank-owned property. This can lead to, frustration with a lot of buyers, and so I would caution real estate agents. There's a point in the contract, or a part in the contract, that allows for a response time. Generally, in a real estate transaction that is a retail, a normal transaction, you would look for a response within 1 to 2 business days. And banks today have gotten a lot better. They oftentimes will answer within 1 to 2 business days. But years ago, it could take 3, 4, up to a week to answer the the offer. But again, this goes, basically from client to client. It can be a little bit different. But keep in mind that the offer response time is not something that they are looking at when you submit an offer. So as a real estate agent, that's not going to put any particular pressure on the bank. Also, keep in mind that when you put in an offer on a foreclosed property, that you're oftentimes the listing agent is not actually submitting the written offer to the seller or to the asset manager. They are using a portal. The portal has key fields that you enter in, and that is just the primary meat and potatoes of the offer. What is the purchase price? What is the deposit? What is the close date? What is the inspection period? Are they financing? Are they cash? And how much money are they putting down? That's really the meat and potatoes of any offer in the eyes of a bank. They don't like any contingencies other than inspections and financing. They don't get into contingencies such as, you got to sell a home before you can purchase this property, which is a very common contingency in the real estate market. One of those that is not accepted, though, for foreclosed properties. So they are put into an online system, and then they get around to reviewing the offers when they're able. Now, they do want to sell properties. I'm not saying that the banks don't want to sell their properties. The asset managers are bonused upon the number of sales that they put out each month. And so it looks like any sales business, there is an incentive to move more and more inventory. And so they do take your offers seriously. I don't want to make it seem like they don't take the offers seriously, but because they are employed and they are working a set amount of hours, and they are oftentimes inundated with work. Asset management is a very difficult industry. Imagine trying to manage a portfolio of properties from, in my case, Tampa, Florida, and you got properties all across the country, and in Seattle and Washington and Texas, and each marketplace is different in their standards and practices, their laws and their regulations, and so it can be very confusing to keep up with the different aspects of each of the real estate transactions, and so that too can help to slow down the flow of a transaction. So submitting the offer, make sure that you allow for adequate time. Do not be impatient when submitting the offer, and be sure that you are catering to the areas that are most looked at when it comes to offering on a bank property. And first off, cash is king, and many times the bank will take an offer that is lower in cash versus an offer that is higher in financing, just due to the ease of the transaction. And but it's not always the case. But if you can put cash on a property, you definitely have an advantage in the foreclosure market. The next thing that is very critical in the offering of a bank-owned property is the closing time frame. 30 to 45 days is typically what they like to see, and they kind of have some standard closing time frames depending on the type of transaction that it is. So if it's a cash deal, 30 days, anything longer than 30 days is a red flag. So don't put an offer on a property that is cash, that it has a closing date longer than 30 days. Really, ideally, something like that can close in 7 to 10 days, with the only contingency really needing to be your inspection. And so make sure that you keep those closing time frames as short as possible. Also, if it's a conventional offer, they like to see 30 days or less. If it's an FHA loan, 45 days is standard, because FHA takes a bit longer than conventional. But going back to some prior programming that I've talked about, all these closing time frames for buyers that are using financing can be chopped nearly in half if the buyer takes the time to get full loan approval prior to putting in an offer on the property, so they can immediately go to the appraisal part of the contract because they are fully approved on the property. So keep that in mind. Get yourself fully loan approved, and that way you can submit an offer subject to financing with a closing time frame of just 10 to 14 days, for instance, because all you need is an appraisal and clear title on a property at that point. It's one of the most overlooked and most fundamental ways to compete effectively with cash offers in real estate that so many real estate agents do not push their buyers into doing so. And a lot of buyers don't fully understand. They like to go to contract, get the property under contract, and then go apply for the mortgage. And they don't apply, and at that point the loan officer doesn't order the appraisal until the buyer has been vetted, and that means turning in the W-2s and then in the tax returns, because they don't want to find out the buyer is denied for the mortgage and then have the appraisal also ordered, because then they've wasted the buyers $400 or $500 for the cost of an appraisal. So keep that in mind. Get yourself fully loan approved, and you'll be able to effectively compete with the cash offers that are out there on the marketplace. Going back to closing time frames, and then if you got a 203K loan, which is kind of the big scary, spooky, bad loan that a lot of bank sellers do not want to see oftentimes, just because, again, there's a lot of work that goes into an FHA 203K loan. This is the loan that incorporates repairs into the acquisition or into the loan of the property. And for these, they'll allow typically 60-day closing time frames. But again, you can cut that back to 30 and under if you simply take the time to vet yourself and get fully loan approved. Next area that a bank is going to look at is your inspection time frame. 7 to 10 days is pretty much max, and the shorter the better. If you can keep it under 5, even better. From a buyer standpoint, just be sure that you understand if the utilities are on or off. Some banks turn on the utilities, some do not. Some are off due to condition reasons, and you may have to request activation, and the bank may turn them on. They may require you to turn them on, or they may be in a situation to where the condition of the property does not allow for the turn on of the utility. Or in our market, especially with the water, because it's oftentimes run by a municipality, they can lien the property for prior owners' past due bills, and until that is paid, you can't turn on water. And so a bank will pay those bills at closing, but they won't pay them at the time that you want to do your inspection period. And so these are all due diligence questions that you as a buyer need to make sure that your selling or your buyer's agent understands, and these are some of the questions that they need to pose to their to the listing agents. So again, keep the inspection period short, but make sure that you understand if the utilities are on and off, because that's what's going to delay getting into that house. Also with the home inspector's schedule, but there's usually home inspectors that are available within 24 to 48 hours max. So when we come back from a break, I'll talk a little bit more about some of the different banks specifically within the foreclosure industry. We'll touch on Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, HUD, the VA, and some of the different things that you need to be aware of when you're buying these types of properties. So again, you're listening to the Real Estate Edition of That Business Show 2.0 with your host, Jamie Maloney, where real estate becomes show business. And welcome back to the Real Estate Edition of That Business Show 2.0. New episodes again Thursday mornings, 9 a.m., thatbusinessnetwork.com. So let's talk about some of the different areas of foreclosed property, some of the different banks, and how also the market is beginning to shift away from traditional, I would say, the traditional ways of disposing or disseminating the properties through these large servicers. And so the major players in the foreclosure business, let's start with first HUD, the Department of Housing and Urban Development. This is associated with buyers who purchase a property using an FHA loan. And so what the department does through the FHA program is they insure lenders against a default. That way they are able to make a riskier loan to somebody with less credit worthiness and less down payment than they otherwise would if they were housing the loan in-house or going to the traditional secondary market. And so with an FHA loan, a buyer puts down 3.5% down versus the traditional 10 and 20%. But in the last several years, actually the last 10 to 15 years, there's a variety of different conventional products that have lower down payments. And at one point, FHA loans were starting to go the way of the dinosaur because conventional loans were coming out with no money down, 3% down, 1% down. There's a variety of different conventional loans that are out there, but each one comes with their own different underwriting guideline. FHA loans are still the most common form of financing for the first-time borrower. So again, this is an insurance program that is funded by the federal government. When a borrower defaults on the mortgagee, which is the bank, forecloses on the borrower, and then they file an insurance claim with the Department of Housing and Urban Development, and then they are paid back what they are entitled to per the claim or whatever the loan was, and then HUD acquires the property and puts it back onto the market through them and their asset management company to recoup whatever they can. And so oftentimes it comes at a substantial loss to the government at the taxpayer's expense, but in the positive though, it does provide for first-time home ownership for a lot of different people that otherwise would not have the ability to purchase a home. So first-time buyers, FHA loans are typically what you will get. And so when HUD acquires the property, and I've been a HUD listing broker for many years in Florida, they are disseminated by Sage Acquisitions. That is the asset management company that has the government contract right now for HUD in the state of Florida. Different states are divided up into different regions, and those regions have different home ownership centers, and each different state and area will have different asset management companies. But this is a government contract that if you are an asset manager or a bank that you could compete with, and it comes along every 5 years. And the last contract in Florida, which is the 8A area right now, they changed in this last round, just renewed in 2016. So July of 2016 is when that took effect. So right now the contracts are locked in. There's always challenges that come up along the way. Things, certain asset management companies will, sometimes fail, and other ones will come in. But it's something if you're in the real estate asset management business, that you can compete for as a government contract. And a lot of times companies that are otherwise not in the real estate business will spin off minority owned businesses and go after these government contracts. So something that I saw in the last contract, an accounting firm based out of Washington spun off a real estate asset division. I mean, an accounting firm that had no experience, and it showed too when they began taking assets in, but nonetheless they over the years became much better at asset management. But as a purchaser of properties that are HUD owned, it's you need to know about the website HUDhomestore.com, and I've done several videos on how to purchase HUD homes. These are completely different ways of buying properties versus the traditional foreclosure servicers that are out there. And so the primary difference with HUD homes versus the other bank-owned homes and other properties in general is that it is done via an online system that the listing agent even does not see the offer. And so this provides for a 100% honest, 100% way to purchase properties without other people knowing what your offer is, or without a listing agent telling maybe a buyer that they have how many offers they have or what offer that they need to be at. HUD Home Store takes that out of the mix altogether. And so this derived from years ago when people actually went to a place in town, the courthouse or wherever, and actually bid on HUD homes at the whatever building that was held in. With the advent of the internet, that was moved online, but it's still an online bid system. And so the offers then are submitted into the system. The offers are then reviewed with the highest offer being accepted, given that it meets the minimum net proceeds to HUD. And so I won't go into this in a lot of depth, but there is a video on TampaBayREO.com under the real estate videos tab. It says how to use HUDHomeStore.com. Also a couple supplemental videos where I talk about the contracts with HUD and go into a lot of these different areas in much more detail. But the first thing to know is HUD caters to the owner-occupant buyer. So investors have restrictions against purchasing these properties. Depending on whether or not the property is insured or not insured or insurable, really does determine these two different timelines. And when I say insurable, I'm not talking about property insurance. I'm talking about FHA insurability, meaning that it meets the FHA guidelines to get an FHA mortgage on a property. Majority of the properties are considered to be FHA insurable in our market. They oftentimes come with a repair escrow. And so there's three categories that HUD homes are given. They are given either insurable, meaning insurable with no repair escrow, insurable with a repair escrow, which means it has lender required repairs of up to $10,000, and that's a recent change. It used to be $5,000, but that means that there can be repairs that are required to meet FHA guidelines, but as long as the cost does not exceed $10,000, a borrower can purchase the property using an FHA loan. Those repairs are never done by HUD, and they are not going to be compensated for by HUD. So the lender that the borrower is working with will either have to escrow those for repairs after closing or roll those into the loan somehow, or the buyer will have to add that repair escrow to the cost of to the down payment to purchase the property. A number of different loan programs out there handle that in different ways, and so you can still come to closing with the traditional 3.5% down plus whatever closing cost, but that repair escrow, if it's another $10,000, a lot of people don't have another $10,000, otherwise they would probably be using a conventional mortgage. So keep that in mind when you're purchasing a property using an FHA loan. The other category is the property is uninsurable, meaning that the lender required repairs are greater than $10,000, and you have to either use an FHA 203K loan or purchase it with cash or another form of financing that is not FHA. And so again, 203K loan is a way to finance the cost of the repairs in the loan of the property. If the property is FHA insurable, the first 10 days on the market is a sealed bid period whereby people can submit offers into the online system, but the offers are not reviewed until the 11th business day. If there's not an acceptable offer at that point, they then roll to a 24-hour bid period where offers from the prior day are reviewed the following business day. So each day at midnight, the prior day offers close. The people at the asset management company come in 9, 10 o'clock. They review the offers, and then they will accept an offer if it meets the minimum net proceeds to HUD. If it does not, it stays on the site. And so I always tell agents, be sure to check the HUD Home Store site, which is primary to the multiple listing service, which is secondary in terms of availability. If the property shows on HUD Home Store, it's available with that exception of that time frame it takes the asset manager to come in the morning, review the offers, and accept an offer. Once they accept the offer, the property disappears from the HUD website, but that there is a lag each and every morning. So typically by midday, they have reviewed all the offers. And so the property is on the site after noon. It's a good chance that there is not going to be an accepted offer. But once they accept an offer, it disappears from the HUDHomestore.com website. They notify the listing agent, and it's not always immediately. It could be, several hours later. And then the listing agent has to get to the computer and pen the property. And so that's why I say HUDHomestore.com is the primary source of information for availability. HUD also has a number of programs available for first-time buyers to take advantage of. One of those is the Good Neighbor Next Door program, whereby teachers, firefighters, and emergency responders, and some other categories also, can purchase HUD homes at 50% off the appraised value. More information can be found on that at HUDHomestore.com. And this is an excellent program. Again, they take the appraised value of the property, divide it in by 2, and just have to live there for 3 years. Also, the $100 down program, another way to purchase a HUD home with a little money out of pocket. Instead of a 3.5% down payment, you can replace that with a $100 down payment and come to closing with less money. Keep in mind there are closing costs, loan costs, and a deposit that you have to put at the time of acquisition or time of contract. And so you do have to have more than $100 to close on a property. Typically comes out to a couple $1,000s for homes that are in the $100,000 to $200,000 range. If you are an investor, you've got to wait 15 days for properties to stay on the market if they are insurable. If they are uninsurable, you've got to wait 5 days. So the first 5 days on an uninsurable property is that same sealed bid period as that 10-day initial period. It's just that the 5-day period for uninsurable properties turns into an investor bidding period on day 6. With uninsurable properties, after those first 10 days, there's still an additional 5 days where owner occupants can still only bid on the properties. And all this information is found at HUDhomestore.com, and you can learn more about what's available at that site right there. When I come back from the break, I'm going to touch on Fannie, Freddie, and the VA and some of the things you need to know about them. And you're currently listening to the Real Estate Edition of That Business Show 2.0 with Jamie Maloney, where real estate becomes show business.
Hi, welcome to Yeagers. We just want to take a minute and show you what we're all about. At Yeagers, our primary business is hardwood flooring, although we are remodelers for kitchen, bath, and general construction. We operate a fleet of shop-at-home vans that have all the flooring type products, hardwood flooring, laminate flooring, tiles, stone, what have you. So we're able to come out first with products in our vehicles and take a look at the setting, how the colors will work, and then to be able to come up with some options and ideas for you. If that's not good enough, we have a large distribution center that we inventory product and have a nice display area.
And we're back to the Real Estate Edition of That Business Show 2.0 with your host, Jamie Maloney, where real estate becomes show business. I'm taking the program talking about foreclosed properties. I myself being a specialist in the sale of bank-owned properties, selling over 2,000 some foreclosed properties in the last 10 years. We'll talk a little bit briefly about some of the different servicers in this segment that I mentioned there in that last segment. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and the VA. I was talking about HUD in particular there in the third segment. But Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are two other big servicers of properties, as well as the VA. The VA is similar to HUD in that it insures lenders against default in the event of a foreclosure, and it's for people that are military veterans. And I'm surprised to learn that many military veterans are not even aware that they have this benefit. And so if you've served in our military military, you have the right to purchase a home and attain a loan up to 100% of the appraised value of the property. So if you're not familiar with this benefit, please talk to a loan officer, and they can tell you what is needed to do to get the ball rolling and purchase a home with, again, 100% of the purchase price covered. So again, very little out of pocket for you. But again, they function in the same way that the FHA loans do, in that it's an insurance against default in the event that the borrower is unable to make their payments. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are similar, but not entirely, because they are the secondary market, whereby a mortgagee makes a loan on a property and then they sell that to the secondary market to provide liquidity to their institution. And so without the secondary market, the bank's funds would quickly become tied up, and they would not be able to make additional loans because all their money, the deposits, are tied up with mortgages. And so Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac come onto the marketplace and buy the loans, and then they securitize them and do different things with them and turn them into financial instruments, sell them back to different portfolios and investment bankers to be used in a variety of different investment products. And then without that, we would not have the liquidity in the housing market that we do. I oftentimes remind people that a 30-year mortgage is a horrible investment for a traditional banker, for anybody for that matter. Traditional mortgages are, again, a fixed rate situation. And so that means that when interest rates are low and borrowers come into the banks to make mortgages, that a 30-year note ties up that money for 30 years at a low interest rate. And so when interest rates are higher, the banks have that money tied up in low interest rate investments, and they can't lend at higher rate environment. When the rates are high and they're lending in high interest rate environments, what happens when the rates drop? Borrowers come in and they refinance. And so it's a bad situation for a bank on both ends of the spectrum. When they're low, they can't lend on high interest rate environments. When they're high and the value or the rates drop, borrowers just refinance. So the goal of the banks is to originate these mortgages, make their money in the fees up front, and in the spread and the interest rate between the investor and what they offer it at, and then to sell it over to the secondary market, and that's primarily Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. But anybody can get into the note business. This is something I've touched on a few times in the program, but the mortgage note servicing business is a great opportunity for experienced investors. This is not something that a first-time investor would dabble in, but essentially you're stepping into the role of the bank. You're servicing the note. You're the one following up on the payments, making sure the taxes are paid, and when the borrower is not making the payments, you're the one giving them the call. And so Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are the ones who foreclose on these borrowers when the servicer forecloses, and if it's a Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac backed loan, they are the ones who will take acquisition or take possession of the property and then sell it through their servicing division of their company. And so Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac provide the liquidity to the marketplace that otherwise would not be there. What's the difference between Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac? There's really not a whole lot of difference between them from what the general public can see. Freddie Mac's, historically have focused on more of thrift banks, smaller banks. Fannie Mae is more for the larger banks, but again, those lines are crossed in both directions, and so there's not a distinct difference between the two different servicers. And so, as an asset or as an REO agent, agents want to get in with these clients because they are lucrative sources of real estate listings. As a buyer buying a Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac property, first off, Fannie Mae's website, homepath.com, a lot of good information over there. Their purchase addendum is over there, and a lot of the restrictions that you need to be aware of are over there. When Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac both first list a property, they cater to the the first-time home buyer, or not necessarily the first-time home buyer, but just a home buyer in general over the investor. They have a 20-day window of owner-occupant bidding only. After the 20 days, they can open it up to investor bidding. It's completely different than what I explained in the third segment in HUD. You submit offers to the listing agents on your state-approved as-is contract, along with the Fannie Mae or the Freddie Mac purchase addendums. The offers are then, put together by the agent and submitted over to the asset manager, and you may or may not have a multiple offer situation. They may or may not take the highest offer. It's up to their own discretion as to what offer that they take. Fannie Mae also has a restriction for investors that if they purchase the property, that they can't resell it for more than 100 or more than 20% over the acquisition cost for the first 90 days. So if you purchase a property for $100,000, you can't resell it for more than $120,000 during those first 90 days. And so it's an investor restriction inside of the Fannie Mae properties. And so be mindful of the 20-day initial bid period, and be mindful of the resale restriction on the Fannie Mae properties. Freddie Mac does not have a resale restriction at this time that I am aware of. They have the 20-day wait for owner occupants, but they too are like offering on a traditional property. We use the state as is contract with their purchase addendum, and you don't need to have the purchase addendum necessarily submitted with the initial offer unless the listing agent requires it, because these offers are submitted in, again, to an online system. And then once the offer that wins is accepted, that's when they go through and then they make sure the contract is, prepared and properly structured, and written. All real estate deals must be written to be valid, but common practice in foreclosed properties, simply submit an as-is contract to the listing agent. Those offers are keyed in online, and then when an offer is accepted, then they prepare the contract for the buyer and the selling agent, because the banks have a number of different addendums. I will be honest with you, are designed really nothing more than to, I wouldn't say to scare borrowers, but to protect the banks legally. Don't get too wound up with all the different addendums and clauses inside of a bank-owned contract. The bottom line, if you stay within your inspection period and your financing contingency, you'll get your deposit back, and they're not going to be provided a property with a defaulted title. If there is any problems with the title of the property, you'll know that prior to closing, and oftentimes the bank won't even sell it to you with a faulty title. They'll pull the property and they'll send it back to the mortgagee to fix the title problem. VA is a great source of properties for investors as well as home buyers. The VA offers properties at no restrictions to investors, both on the purchase side and on the resale side. Both VA and Freddie Mac don't have core websites. I mean, they have websites, but not as in-depth as like a HUDHomestore.com or a HomePath.com, and so their resources are not as lucrative as those two sites. Right now, the VA properties are being managed by VRM, an asset management company out of Texas. They are just awarded another 10-year contract to service the VA properties. And so if you go to vrmco.com, that is the servicing company's website, you can pick up a little bit of information over there. But again, there's not a lot of information in a central website that is easy to use for the consumer. But again, just know that there are no investor restrictions on the purchase or the resale, and that VA properties are often, at least in our market, sold at and under fair market value. Fannie generally prices properties over fair market value, as does Freddie Mac. HUD often prices them under fair market value. And again, that's in Tampa Bay. Other markets could differ. It's all based upon the appraisal of the property. And if you get higher appraisers in a market that are, just on the high side versus, the actual market values, so you get some different practices in markets. But in Tampa Bay, Fannie and Freddie generally price high. HUD and the VA generally price low. How is it in your market? I don't know, but it does something that you should learn by asking a listing agent for bank properties. Also, keep in mind the prevalence of title problems on bank-owned properties could delay a closing. Make sure that you're buying a property that you don't necessarily need to be in on that particular closing date, and be sure that you check for back HOA liens. That's the number one delay of bank-owned properties on real estate deals, is the HOA liens that need to be cleared prior to closing on a property, especially in Florida, where the HO lien is a super lien and it survives the foreclosure of the property. Again, you're not going to get a property with a defective title. As long as you bought it through the multiple listing service, you'll get title insurance, and if there's a defaulted title, they'll pull the property from you. And again, if you buy it from the auction, or if you buy it from the a bank, not a traditional sale, then you're at risk of buying a property without clear title, and that's where experience and due diligence is paramount. to having an effective real estate deal. So again, I myself have sold over 2,000 foreclosed properties in 10 years in business. I can help you as an asset manager for a bank, as an investor or home buyer, also specializing now more so in commercial real estate, but want to be your resource for buying or selling real estate in the Tampa Bay region. I can be reached at the contact form over at tampabayreo.com. We covered that in the first segment, so keep an eye on that, our new foreclosure based website for Tampa Bay, tampabayreo.com, and use our contact form over there for more information. Or send me a message directly, jamie@tampabayradio.com, and catch new episodes each weekday or each Thursday at 9 a.m. on thatbusinessnetwork.com. So you've been listening to the Real Estate Edition of That Business Show 2.0. I'm your host, Jamie Maloney, where real estate becomes show business.